Show us the one when we're kissing. Show us the sea while we swoon. Come take a trip in my airship, and we'll visit the sun and the moon. Ain't this a nice song? Yes, it is a nice song.
Up ship.
Greetings, loyal airmen, and welcome to the first Airship 27 podcast of the new year. This is number 23. I'm your co-host, Captain Ron Fortier, and with me, joining me as always, is
Rob Davis, Chief Engineer of Airship 27 Productions. And hello, Happy New Year.
Right. Why don't you read our ad, and then we'll launch into this podcast, which is going to be a unique one for us.
Right. Okay. Well, as we always announce with the beginning of every show, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network. You can find every episode of Airship 27 Podcast on comicspodcast.com each month. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Comic Frontline, and, of course, Zone4Podcast.com.
All right. Thanks. And then, of course, that's all in thanks in large part to our parent company here on the net, Zone 4 Productions, run by Brant, Sparky Fowler. And just so you know, Rob, at the end of last month, Brant hooked up all our Zone 4 shows, including the Airship 27 podcast, with, I think, almost a dozen other internet podcast sites.
Man, that's excellent.
It is. He's already seen, I think, the downloads for the first Zone 4 production after he did that. I think it almost tripled in numbers.
Wow. Wow. Jeez.
We could be talking to a much bigger audience than we imagined.
Well, maybe we'll get more questions now.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to segue into that real quick. That's going to be a large part of this particular show, which I'm very happy about. But, hey, we do want to thank everybody who supported Airship 27 last year. It turned out pretty much to be a banner year for us. Which was, I think, a pleasant surprise the way it started off so slowly.
Right, and it looks like it's going to happen that way again this year.
Right.
Again, but yeah, toward the end there, we were pumping them out left and right. They just the dam broke right there in November. So yeah, we got quite a few.
And we actually managed after we recorded our December show, which is we always try to record within the first or second week of each month. We actually got out the last two titles of the month, and those were let me take the first one and I'll let you take the second.
Okay.
All right, the last two books that we actually released in 2016's were Wings of the Golden Dragon by Barbara Duran, which is a prequel to her debut novel from 2015 that she'd done for us called Claws of the Golden Dragon. This adventure takes place in the 1930s Shanghai. Gary Cotto provided the interior illustrations, and Rob, you did the cover, and we've had nothing but tons of mail on that cover. People absolutely love it. You did a great job.
Well,
and
thank you.
The happy news with all that, Barbara promises there are more books in this series on the way.
Cool. Very cool.
Yep.
Okay.
And so what was our last book of the year, Rob?
The very last book of 2016 was Quartermain, The New Adventures Volume 2. This second collection features a novella by Thomas Kent Miller and two shorts, one by Aaron Smith and the other one by Alan Porter. And I think Alan was, I'm not sure about the other two, but I know Alan was in the first Quartermain.
Yeah.
Clayton Hinkle provided the interior illustrations, and Graham Hill the really nice cover. Note, Wayne Carey has turned in two full-length Quartermain novels, and we hope to have them out sometime later this year. Our fingers are crossed on that, but we'll see. So, do you remember was Aaron or Thomas in that first collection? I don't remember right offhand.
No, they weren't.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It was just Alan.
Right.
The first collection was atypical of Airship 27 anthologies, Rob. We actually had 4 stories in there, one of which, again, was by Alan. And I should put a note to this and give a little heads up. I purposely didn't do it, Rob, when I was promoting the book, but the truth of the matter is, in Alan's story, in this second volume, Quartermain actually comes across a very young Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I noticed. I didn't actually read the story, but I noticed some of the dialogue, and I thought Holmes was in there. So yeah, I was right.
So
okay.
All of you Holmes fans out there looking for a sneaky cameo, do pick up this book. It's really a great book. And again, as Rob just said, Wayne Carey's done 2 exceptional full-length novels. So depending on how we can get the books put together, the artwork, the timing, all that good stuff, I would like to think securely, Rob, we'll get the first one out this year.
Yeah,
amongst all our other projects.
I would think so. Yeah.
And then maybe have to wait for the second in the following year.
Yeah.
So here you go. Both Wings of the Golden Dragon and Quartermain Volume 2 are now available at Amazon, as all our books are, in both paperback and on Kindle. So as ever, thanks for your support. This particular episode, as Rob and I alluded to a few minutes earlier, is going to be different for us because last week, Rob, when I announced we were doing the show, I really beat the drums at Facebook for questions, and we got at least a half dozen, which are going to be fun for us to deal with. But before we do that, here we are into the new year, and already we've released our first title, which I'll let you get to in a second. But before I do that, just today, we also, thanks to our partnership with Radio Archives, Radio Archives just released their first Airship 27 title of 2017, and that was the audio version of Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective Volume 7, which has great stories in it, again, by Alan Porter, I.A. Watson, Aaron Smith, and Greg Hatcher, and as ever, wonderfully read by voice actor George Cush, who's done all the Sherlock Holmes for Radio Archives and that. So that is out there, people. And Rob, segue into you. What was our first title of 2017?
Well, I'm happy to say this was by an old pal of mine, R.A. Jones, has added to his Mankiller series with Comanche Blood. And it's a terrific old-fashioned Western. It's the second in the series featuring the former Civil War veteran, as I mentioned, Jason Mankiller, a bounty hunter working in the Texas Badlands. He first made his appearance in R.A.'s Gun Glory, which came out last year. Comanche Blood features a cover by Adam Shaw and interior illustrations by Chris Kohler, this being his first project for Airship 27 Productions. And R.A. didn't tell me this directly, but I did see in a message between you and him that I was CC'd on that he wants to do more of these Jason Mankiller stories, and you gave him a big thumbs up. So that's a little announcement I guess we can make right now, that R.A.'s going to do some more on this, more Western stories with this same character, Jason Mankiller.
Yeah, the Gun Glory got really, really good reviews. It was a big hit with our Western fans. And for those of our loyal listeners listening, out there paying attention to this, who absolutely, love Westerns, let me just state that R.A., who lives in Oklahoma, knows his Western history extremely well. These are straight-up old-fashioned, as Rob just said, cowboy stories with this bounty hunter as a hero. And, Rob, after, not having read 2 of them in the series, to me, it comes across very much like a cross between the old Gunsmoke and Have Gun Will Travel kind of thing.
Ooh, okay. I haven't read those since I didn't illustrate them. But again, I catch little
that's
snippets.
the feeling, because
cool.
The saga opens up with us learning the history of Jason Mankiller and his experiences in the Civil War. And I won't give that away. I won't spoil a good part of why he's such a unique bounty hunter. But again, all logical, all realistic, very realistic and historically accurate. But at the same time, by the middle of the first book, Gun Glory, Jason has come to the small East Texas town and settled there and gotten to know some of the people. So that by the time you get to Comanche Blood, he's again on the trail, right? That's what he does for a living. He chases down owl hoots and varmints, all right? But RA is smart enough to continue giving us some more stories and backgrounds of the people who live in this little town, which is why I say it has that really nice mix of Gunsmoke. That you know, remember you always saw the Marshal, but you also saw Miss Kitty, Festus, Doc, and you always had the supporting cast. And that's what RA's building with this series of Jason Mankiller books. I'm thrilled and excited to the max that he's going to continue for us. And obviously he's having a ball writing them as well.
Yeah, he is. I know he's always wanted to be a Western writer, so he is one now.
Yeah, and hey, we got to tip our hats to Chris Kohler. Chris is a professional illustrator who's been a part of New Pulp Rob for, God, as long as it's been around, for 10, 11 years now. And I first became aware of his magnificent artwork in his work for White Rocket Books, for our pal Van Plexico.
Right.
And Chris came to us because Chris is still working with Van, doing a lot of things. But with Van, he was mostly doing superhero stuff via that very successful Sentinel series,
right,
and also Van's science fiction work. And Chris has really, added much to both those series and made them successful. So he came to me one day in a letter last year saying that he was very appreciative of what Airship 27 was about. He liked the look of our books and whatever, and was wondering if we might have a project that would take him away from the super stuff, the fancy science fiction and all that good stuff.
Right.
And as it happens, kismet or perfect timing, here we had Comanche Blood, and I simply went to Chris and said, well, how would you like to do a straight-up Western? And of course, he felt like a kid in the candy store, right? He was over-thrilled, and as you know, he turned in some of the most beautiful, detailed illustrations we've ever published.
Right. Yeah, it's using the same style that he used on Sentinels, and it's a very, very comic book-looking style, but it's very detailed, right. And it fits this story really well, from what I could tell.
Yeah, and I shared them with R.A., the author, and R.A. was beside himself as well. He couldn't thank Chris enough for embellishing his story. So there you go. It's a great book. It's hopefully going to be available on Amazon when you hear this podcast on Friday. As ever, Rob and I, it seems like the recurring nightmare that we keep having every time we post a new book. But hopefully we'll figure it out. The book is out. Please, the book is out. The book is available. And like I said, by the time you are listening to this podcast, go to Amazon.com and write in Comanche Blood, R.A. Jones. It should come up. It should be there for you, the paperback for sure. And hopefully, eventually the Kindle edition as well. Yeah, that'll take a little while. We're going through the like we've done with the last good handful of these stories. Create Space has stopped the release of the book until we can get them some proof that we have the rights to do this. I wish they had a process, and I hope somebody out there who knows somebody at Create Space can maybe nudge them in the elbow and say, hey, look, put something in your process that will allow people like self-publishers and small publishers like us to send them notification that we do have rights to these people, we can to these stories, and maybe send along a letter from the author stating that. This process of shutting down the book while we're waiting for them to approve it and get this letter from folks after the fact is kind of aggravating. So, right. You CC'd in your letter to Create Space, and I've agreed with you right from the start. When this issue, raised its ugly head last year, it doesn't seem to me all that difficult to think that Create Space could change its submission process to include that verification at the same time you're turning the files in. Yeah, it just makes sense to me. There's got to be other people out there doing what we're doing. I mean, running into the same wall. Right, and the same thing.
And I'm also thinking we may want to add another step to our process, and that if this is going to continue to happen, maybe we should just have ready a letter to send in.
Yeah,
as soon as we get this
documentation from our writers, you mean?
Yeah, immediately,
Yeah.
so we can send this in right away. Otherwise, we have to come back and go to our authors, and then it takes can take an extra day or so, which is kind of ridiculous. So we may want to look at our side of the process as well.
Right. If it persists, we will do something to
we'll have to
make it better. Yeah.
All right. So you're gonna tell them about Brother Bones next, the movie?
Yeah.
Why don't we go on to that? I'm sure people are tired of us whining about our problems, and let's hear about the really good stuff happening here.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely. Again, just last week, I got a letter in from one of the writer-producers of the Brother Bones movie in production, from Franklin Husser Entertainment, and that being Eric Franklin. And he sent me a nice update, which I'm very excited about, and I'm going to read off from his letter. The majority of the shooting locations has been secured. Now, I think they've already done. By that done, I mean they have to get rights to use these places, obviously, whoever owns the properties. I believe they've already gotten 14, and they only have 9 locations left to secure those rights. And they will have that in place for where they're going to be shooting throughout the Seattle area, all right? And they're saying that this should all be done by March. They should be ready to rock and roll and have all the legal paperwork in place. They hope to begin casting in early May. Now, this will allow them to work on matte paintings and and special effects shots that don't require actors in them. After the casting, they will begin an online funding program, which we've talked about before, and right now they're looking most likely at Kickstarter. Obviously, we'll keep you posted right here on this show. They've got some terrific ideas for rewards and promotions, which we think all Brother Bones fans will really enjoy and appreciate. And hopefully, Rob, you and I and some of our other friends out there, Scalcrow Games, the role-playing people, Jace Marshall, collectible action figures, etc., will get involved with that part of this.
Yeah.
Right now, their goal is for the principal photography to take place in the early fall of this year. And again, going back to our report from last episode, once they start shooting 2 weeks max, they will finish principal photography. I would assume, Rob, that then it'll go into post-production throughout the winter.
Yeah.
And if everything goes super good, all fingers crossed, people, sometimes maybe, early in 2018, the movie will be finished, it'll be ready for distribution, and away we go. So, I mean, again, it's all good news, it's all positive news, and this is what caught me, Robin, and you've seen the agenda. Daniel finishes his letter to me, because what I had done is, in the course of some of our exchanges, I had suggested a couple of other titles that Airship 27 has put out that I thought would translate well to film. Now, Rob, I was basically thinking of straight-out modern-day thrillers, like Fred Adams' Dead Man's Melody.
Right.
Right, Scott, I'm trying to say to myself, what would be the easiest thing for young producers in an independent film company to do? And, of course, I'm not giving any thought to how well Daniel and Eric have been doing the special effects of Brother Bones. And did you watch that last video update they put out of the monastery?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, that is available on Facebook. To all our friends here, just check out Franklin Husser Entertainment on Facebook. There is a video, Rob, with Eric dressed up as one of the monks walking through the monastery.
Okay, I did see them walking down it. Yeah, I did see that.
Okay,
was there more to it than that, or I was thinking it was just that little sequence? And he was talking about the special effects in that, right?
Right. He claps his hands.
Yeah, I did
the blue screen disappears, and he's in his garage.
I did see that. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So that's the thing I'm saying is that myself as a novice, I have no clue on how to make a movie. I'm like, well, maybe they should just stick to the easy stuff. That's where I look at it. Okay, production-wise, easy stuff. So here's what Eric's last letter to me, ends with. And he says, rest assured, Ron, he says, if, once we finish Brother Bones, and hopefully it is a successful release, that they very much want to look at our catalog of other titles, and he lists these: Dead Man's Melody, Motor City Manhunt, Claws of the Golden Dragon, Thing, Gun Glory, there you go,
yeah,
Domino Lady, Snake, Nest of Vipers, The Wind-Up Kid, Three Against the Stars.
That would be interesting.
Oh, wow. Space opera?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Tales of the Bagman. And the Captain Hazard series.
Did you get Deathwalker and Mars McCoy? I think.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, space opera.
Right.
Deathwalker is a Native American adventure series by R.A. Jones, book by R.A. Jones.
Right.
But Mars McCoy was next in that line, Space Ranger.
Right.
And they're even considering doing that, which boggles my mind.
Yeah, that
never,
should be
never mind. Again, he's got Captain Hazard down here. So I mean, how do you make the jungles of Guatemala and Seattle? But I say that, and did you have you seen the new Tarzan movie that came out last year?
I have not. It'll have to come out on DVD, I think, before I'll see that one. That one I didn't see at the theater. So.
All right. Well, here's the thing. It is out. It is out on DVD and Blu-ray, and I picked it up. And again, being the movie buff that I am, I was really, really anxious to get into, the documentaries on their making this. So having watched the film, Rob, at the theaters, I thought to myself, well, I'm sure they must use some blue screen and some studio work. All right.
Right.
But right. Well, here's the thing. You watch a documentary, and when I say all, 100% of principal photography using all the actors was shot in the Pine Street Studios in England.
Holy cow.
You got that? Not one actor in that movie was ever in Africa.
Wow.
In fact, when you watch a documentary, they shot in Africa. You know what they shot? They sent down the second unit director and the camera crews. They hired a helicopter, and for like a week and a half, they flew over dense jungles, rivers, and flew all those, overhead establishing shots.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. That's the only real Africa. Everything else, whenever you see any of the leads, whether it's Tarzan, Jane, the villain, anything, that was all done in a studio.
Wow.
Margot Robbie, who played Jane in the movie, in her little bit in the documentary, said she was shocked. When she first got the script and read it and was excited about doing the movie, she told her friends and family, well, I guess I'm going to have to stop packing my bags for this on shoot. We'll be in Africa and everything. And the director said, oh, no, dear, we're not leaving England. We're doing this all in London. So
wow.
So, that's movie magic today, Rob.
Wow.
And believe me, when you do see the film, your jaw will drop because you swear to God they're on location.
Well, it's amazing what they've been able to do in the last few years with that kind of stuff. I mean, look at all the stuff in the latest Star Wars movies. A lot of that is green screen or blue screen or whatever.
Yep.
Wow, just incredible what they can do now.
It is. And that's why I say, when I see things like, Mars McCoy's Space Ranger or Three Against the Stars, I'm starting to think, well, you know what? Daniel and Eric are such creative young filmmakers. I'm not putting anything past them. And let me just add, he ends that list with saying, of course, we want to do more Brother Bones, including a Sister Blood spinoff. Hey, anything's possible here. So
okay.
There you go.
Now you heard that ping in the middle of all that. That was a notification on my computer, and I got guess what? I got a notification from CreateSpace, from the Content Validation Request team. And here it is. Hello, Rob. Thank you for your response. Based on the information you provided, this content will be live and available within the next 24 hours. No further action is required on your part. We appreciate your cooperation in this matter. Regards, CreateSpace Validation Request Team. Hooray!
Yes. So yeah, so now barring the end of the world or whatever, as we're saying, as you are listening to this, Comanche Blood by R.A. Jones is available at Amazon. Please, again, if you love Westerns, really check this book out. It's an exceptional title. All right, and you know what, Rob? That is it. That's how we're going to end, the newsies part of this particular episode, because like I said, we were so lucky to get some really, really decent questions from a lot of our friends and fans out there, and I want to get to them because I want to give them all the attention that each is due. So why don't you read question number 1 and tell us who it's from?
Okay. Question number 1 from Jeff Venture. What sword and sorcery stuff have you read lately? You want me to answer first?
You go right ahead.
Mine'll be real short. I haven't read any sword and sorcery stuff in a long time. I'm presently plowing my way through Earl Stanley Gardner's Perry Mason novels, and I'm a little over halfway through. I've also been reading some scholarly books on a personal graphics project I've been planning for a number of years. I hope to have that out sometime in the next year or so, so stay tuned. You gave me an opportunity to plug something and whet everyone's appetite. But anyway, yeah. But I haven't read any sword and sorcery in a very long time.
Let me ask you. See, and that was my initial reaction. My immediate thought was, well, not in years.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorite genres, and I'm more of a science fiction guy. So fantasy and sword and sorcery, I've always taken a backseat. I can remember as a teenager discovering, the Robert E. Howard Conan series.
Right.
And enjoying them a great deal. And ultimately, I would say within the last 10 years, the only real sword and sorcery under that umbrella label that I've actually read were the Imero series.
Okay, yeah.
By our good friend Charles Saunders.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, I cannot recommend those enough for people. If you are unfamiliar, Charles Saunders is an African-American writer, fantasy novelist, and years ago created this entire mythology of ancient Africa with all these civilizations and mythologies and cultures, and smack dab in the middle of it, much like Howard did with Conan, he created this outcast warrior named Imero, and has written a half dozen books. Some are collections of short stories, some are full novels, all about Imero's rise to power and fame and becoming this warrior hero in this mythological, post-Africa of mythology. The series is fantastic. Now, lately, I want to say, I think about 2 years ago, one of our colleagues in New Pulp, Joel Jenkins, sent me a sword and sorcery book called The Skull Crusher to read and review, which I did, and I enjoyed immensely. So I want to give a shout out to Joel, only because Joel's actually written a second in the volume, and he was decent enough to send me a copy last week, Rob, which is now on my review stack. So thanks a lot for that, Joel. And that's the answer to that first part of your question, Jeff. Rob, what's the second part of this question?
Oh, and who is your favorite pulp hero? That's question number 2. That apparently is also from Jeff Fincher. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, my favorite pulp hero, and you probably know this already, is Secret Agent X. I find his assuming other person's identities really interesting, and it leads to some really intriguing stories, I think.
Oh, God, yes. Totally. We've had a lot of fun, and, while you bring that up, it's a good opportunity for me to slip this in. I mentioned this on my Facebook posting this morning, but I want to bring it up here again, too. Oops.
We're
Did we lose you? Did we lose you? Did you fall off your chair or something?
No, I was. I'm moving the recording equipment here because you're coming in. Unlike last time, you're coming in louder than I was.
Oh, okay.
Which is good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully people can hear us, okay?
Right.
And please, if ever an episode is way too down, give us a holler and let us know, all right? Speaking of, and I'm also a huge fan of Secret Agent X, I want to answer this real quick. My personal favorite pulp hero, it's not easy to do. I'm trying to think of all the... I really like the Spider. There was something about the Spider and the insanity of the character, Rob, all right, that really, really sang to me. The prose is fast-paced, it's frenetic, and I always loved the quirkiness of the Spider stories, wherein they would always reboot from adventure to adventure, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So in other words, a new master villain would show up in New York and destroy half the city during that adventure with Richard Wentworth fighting him. Thousands of people would die, Rob. The Brooklyn Bridge would sink into the Hudson, all this good stuff. And then the following month, the new issue would come out, and it was all fixed. and he'd fight another supervillain or whatever. But if push comes to shove, again, like I said, it's hard for me to do this because obviously I'm doing the Captain Hazard books now, and that holds a near and dear, place in my heart. But of the classic pulp characters, again, my answer is the Spider. Now, the one thing I wanted to bring up about Secret Agent X, Rob, and you're going to get a kick out of this, last week I had an inquiry from a young man named Kaushik Kaforma who wanted to see about writing for us. We exchanged a few emails. I sent him our submission guidelines, which anybody out there can get from me. And he got back to me, showed me samples of his writing, which I enjoyed a great deal, and enough so, and said, okay, here's our list of characters that we use. The short end of it is, Rob, that Kaushik is now going to be writing the first Secret Agent X story, which will kick off Volume 6.
Oh, cool.
So we have a new Secret Agent X volume in the works. And Kaushik, the name just caught me, and so I asked politely, what his background was. He's from India. He's from Calcutta.
Wow.
So talk about new pulp being international. And he just today, by the way, joined the Pulp Factory.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right. Let me take question number 2 here. And this one comes from our good friend and buddy, fellow writer, and one of our valued proofreaders at Airship 27, Gordon Demowski. Gordon writes, just how does Airship 27 decide on characters in anthology series? I know public domain status is a key, but what makes you decide between, say, Sherlock Holmes or a Loveday Brooke? Also, if one of your stable of talented, productive writers had an idea for an anthology, what would be the process?
Well, this is all in your ballpark. This is. I don't have any answers for this one, so.
Okay, real quick. Gordon, the first thing, obviously, and you already nailed it, okay, is whatever we do at Airship 27 has to be one of two things, either public domain, and with that, we have a list, hopefully, we have a very accurate list of a half a dozen classic pulp characters from the 1930s and 40s that we know, hands down, in public domain. So that was the primary start of Airship 27. After we've been at this for a couple of years, Rob and I both agreed it was time to maybe open the doors and let some of our writers create new pulp characters. And from that point on, it wasn't difficult that several came to us to create new series based on these new characters. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples of that came to my mind the minute I read this. The first was our friend Bill Craig. And if you'll remember, Rob, Bill came to us and said he'd like to do an anthology series, much like that old TV show, Tales of the Golden Monkey.
Yeah, uh-huh.
That came out in the 80s. And so
Right.
what Bill did was, once he approached us and said, would you guys be interested in an anthology like that? And we gave him thumbs up. He went home and he wrote the Bible. He came back to us with the Bible. We shared it with our writers. Bill wrote a story, and so did 3 other people. And we actually put out a volume 1 of Tales from Tales from the Hanging Monkey. Is that what?
Yeah, Tales from the Hanging Monkey. And just
Right.
to do an aside here, not everyone may know what you mean by a Bible. A Bible for a series like that means that you sit down and you set up the criteria for the little milieu in which all the characters operate in, and the major characters that are going to be operating in that milieu. So that's what Ron means by a Bible.
Right. So here we go. We've already published 1 volume of Tales from the Hanging Monkey, and we're that close, Rob, from getting volume 2 out. Mike Harris is doing the interior illustrations for it, and Mike got caught up with a whole bunch of other projects last year. I spoke with him via email just last week. He owes us, I believe, 3.
Yeah, I think there's 3 left. Yep.
And that's it. And we can get a cover, and there will be a second volume. Now, again, following suit with this, one of the coolest series that we ever created via Airship 27 was actually a team effort that came from the Pulp Factory Yahoo group. I put out the idea of doing a space opera series called Mars McCoy Space Ranger, and then asked my fellow writers to give me characters, supporting characters for this series, all right?
Right.
That could be either be human or alien. Well, Rob, I think a half a dozen of our colleagues contributed to this Bible, as you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We shaped it together, myself and Van Plexico, and eventually we've already put out 2 volumes of Mars McCoy Space Ranger stories. Again, a joint team effort, if you will. And finally, the last one, which was one of the most popular that we've done in Airship 27, Rob, is when I created the new concept for a new Sinbad series.
Right.
Right? Where I created an entire international cast. I wrote a Bible, put it out there for people who might be interested in doing Sinbad, and I'm trying to think, what have we done? 5 volumes already? 4 of them were...
I think it's
5.
5.
4 were collections, and 1 was a full-length novel.
Right. Yep.
And we've
Sounds
actually
right.
got a 6th in production right now.
Right.
So, Gordon, the answer to your question is yes. We are very, very receptive to new anthology series of some character idea you might have. All right? You know how to contact me, my good friend. Please do so. I'm very, very curious to see what you got up your sleeve. All right. And you know what, Rob? Next question ties into what you just answered, so I'll let you take it.
Let's see. From Wally Conger?
No, Bob.
Above that, from David No. From David No. Okay, what about an author creating an original story or character Bible for other authors to play with? And that you just kind of covered that in the answer to the other one. But
Right.
yeah, again this one's mostly in your ballpark rather than mine. But yeah, obviously that's quite okay to do.
Well, the thing is, what I wanted you to pick it up on was because you were explaining the Bible.
Right.
And David, that's the idea here, okay? If you're going to give us an idea for a series, you, Gordon, or anybody else, we will go back to you to create the Bible for that series,
right?
And what do we look for in the Bible? You just heard Rob explain it, okay? We need to know what the setup is. We need to really know who the principal characters are and who the supporting characters are. And by that, I mean you really have to describe them. You have to describe them physically, emotionally. It basically has to be biographies of all the people in this setup, this world you are creating.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be hugely detailed, because some author can come in and fill in some little areas in between. But it's got to have at least the basics of what the character's about, who they are, and how they deal with the world in which they're put. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, if a character is 100% the hero, then okay, he's the stalwart hero. If you've got characters who deal in both, who are maybe anti-heroes or whatever, then describe that. But give the Bible enough weight so that when we share it with other writers, they'll have a handle on what you've set up, and then be able to play, as we say, in your sandbox.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. So now, again, keeping this thread going, Rob, pretty much. The next one is by Wally Conger.
Yeah, I jumped down one. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And you know, again, for anybody listening to what we're talking about, we are very, very receptive to creating new anthology series with brand new heroes. Do your homework. Give me a Bible that I can appreciate and enjoy, and the odds are good we'll run with it. All right. So Wally Conger writes, what are the odds of Airship 27 producing a Scarlet Pimpernel book? Seems right up your alley. Well, you know what? Considering the fact that we've been doing Sinbad now for several years, okay, which is, you know, sword and sorcery, mythology, and all that, and we recently announced that we are going to be doing a series called Pulp Mythology. We are branching out more and more into that fantasy realm, or the masked hero kind of thing, like a la the Scarlet Pimpernel, or the Three Musketeers, or those kind of things. The truth of the matter is, Wally, I would definitely love to do a Scarlet Pimpernel anthology. What I need to see, obviously, is interest from our readership. If I get enough writers who come to me and say, you know, because believe it or not, and Rob, I think you remember this, in our submission guidelines, someplace at the end of that, there is a list of public domain pulp heroes and classic heroes. Like, what's the other one? Robin Hood.
Yeah.
We've done what? We've done 4 or 5 Robin Hood
Four
books?
Robin Hood books, yes.
Right.
Three novels and a collection of short stories, all by Ian Watson, yeah.
There you go. And that's that ballpark that Wally's talking about. So the truth is, if somebody came to me with a passion for doing Scarlet Pimpernel and said, hey, I have, you know, a book for you, A, I'd grab it in an instant if it was well written. B, if they said, well, I'd like to see an anthology and I can offer you a story, I would definitely launch that project. All right? If you really want to see that happen, then knock on my door, tell me you've got a good Scarlet Pimpernel story, and we'll get an anthology going. I'm trying to remember some of the other characters. We had like Hercules on that list, and again, like I said, the Three Musketeers, and a lot of classic stuff out there. So again, that door is wide open to all of you. All right, hey Rob, pick the next one. I think you'll have fun with it. It's from Eric.
Yeah, I've even got some notes underneath this one, so I must have something to say. This one's from Eric Franklin, and he says, I'm gearing up to sell books at my first convention soon. Maybe you could do a section on do's and don'ts. Rob gave me some good info, and I think it would be useful and interesting topic. So he emailed me, and I answered him, and I went to the email that I answered him with, and I clipped that out, and I'm going to read that to you. As for conventions, my advice is to have plenty of change. $5 bills if you're charging $15 each for your books. You'll get a lot of 20s. And if possible, have a way to accept credit cards. We use Square at Airship 27 at our table. Beyond that, smile sincerely and greet everyone that comes up by the table, and have an interesting story to tell about yourself and or your books or other products, told with enthusiasm. Freebies are a good draw, so bookmarks or postcards are good to have. See if Ron has any advice here as well. When he and I are at conventions together, I usually sit back and run the cash drawer and interject once in a while. He's a consummate convention salesman.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And all the advice you just gave was hands down the bare bottom, great advice.
Bottom drawer.
The other physical thing I would recommend to Eric, as one writer to another, if you don't have business cards, make some up.
Okay.
And make sure you have all your contact information on those cards. Rob, you've seen this, and we've both done it a lot of times at conventions. A lot of times people come up to our table and show real interest in our product and everything, but for whatever reason they're low on cash or whatever, and they can't make a buy there. And, we tell them about Amazon and stuff. But there's always, again, that person that, well, do you have a card? Do you have a card? Early on in my convention going, that was one of the things that I kept not doing until finally realized that that's ridiculous. I'm missing out on making a lot of really good contacts with people who later weeks after a convention, might be going through the memorabilia they picked up at the show and find my card.
Right.
And then go, oh, okay, I remember meeting this gentleman. Go online and find my books. So, yeah, that's another thing. As Rob said, the change is important. Be able to, to take credit cards, all those things, to have freebies and your business card. Please, if you don't have enough of them and you're going to a con, hit to the printers real quick and get another stash put up. Make sure you have them on site.
Vistaprint's real good for those.
Yes.
For postcards and even bookmarks. Let's see, overnight prints, I think, is another one. There's several other places. Just go on the internet and see who's got a sale going on what you're looking for, and you can shop around.
Yeah, best deal, by all means.
But Vistaprint is usually the best, and even if you've got a local Staples, they even do printing like that now.
Yes, they do.
So you can get it there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had business cards made up at Staples when I needed them, like within a couple days.
Yeah. They can do them real quick.
Right. Now, the other thing, and again, what Rob said, and it's all about the philosophy of selling in my book, guys. When you go to your first convention and you're going to have a table and you're going to bring your books, I mean, that adrenaline rush is phenomenal. Because, again, even artists, what we do when we create is a private thing. Suddenly, we're out there in the public and we're socializing. So, really, Eric, the thing is to find that happy middle ground. By that, I mean don't be the used car salesman, all right? Because Rob and I have seen these guys, and you can't walk by your table without them yelling and screaming in your ear, okay?
And throwing stuff at you.
I got, and it's great. And trust me, they're out there. If you don't think I'm making this up, they're out there, and they end up being the most obnoxious people at the show. And you will see most of the time people just ignore them completely. So the fine line is don't also sit there like a bump on a log and just let people walk by thinking somehow or other magically your books are going to draw them in. If they don't know you, sit there as a fellow con goer with the public. Have the attitude that you're there to have a good time and to meet really great people. Then as they walk by your table, good morning. How you doing today? Tommy Hancock, I think, Rob, has one of the nicest opening lines I've ever seen, and I've swiped it totally. All right. If people come over and say hi and you start a conversation, Tommy's line is, "So, what do you like to read?"
Yep.
And that's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And so now you've engaged a would-be customer in a conversation about reading, something you both should like. You can show them your wares, those that maybe appeal to whatever his likes or dislikes or her likes or dislikes. But here's the bottom line. In the back of your mind, the sale should not be your number one priority. And I mean that with all my heart and soul. Your number one priority should be to make a new friend, to have a decent conversation, to enjoy the experience of the convention. Trust me, if you do it at that approach, people will take to you immediately. They will enjoy your personality, your being there. You can talk about the history of pulps, movies, what you like. Ultimately, you make a friend. I'm telling you, you didn't make a customer. And Rob and I can tell you hundreds of stories where people have stopped by our table. We've talked, engaged, had great conversations, and then, they look at us with this, like, sad puppy dog, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Well, I've only got a few bucks. And they walk off.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We say, fine, thanks for stopping by. We enjoyed talking to you. And lo and behold, right, and this is what I'm getting at, next thing you know, they're back because they ran outside the hall.
Yeah, we had that happen. We literally had that happen.
Came back to buy our books.
Yeah.
Now, you think if we'd have been pushing sales, they ever would have came back to us? Of course not. They came back because they met people with similar interests that they enjoyed talking with. And then it was easy for them to buy our books.
Yep.
So cordiality, politeness, good manners go a long ways. And Eric, good luck at your first show.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that's
all
right. Yep, exactly. Okay, one more?
We got two more. You take the next one.
Okay, all right. Oh, yeah, we do have two more. Yeah, from Paul Findley. Have you considered doing an anthology built around political thrillers with characters like Secret Agent X and other G-Man types? Again, I think this one's in your ballpark more than it is mine. So, yeah, go ahead.
Right. The thing with this one, Paul, is from how I read it, okay, the idea of pulps and political thrillers isn't totally opposite, but it can be. It can be a logistical issue if you're going to do an anthology, because then you have to make sure that each story doesn't repeat what the other story did. Okay? I mean, how much material is there in political thrillers that's all that new? Obviously, political thrillers deal with assassinations, corrupt, administrations or whatever. And one of the best examples of dealing with this kind of thing happened a couple years ago when our good friends at Moonstone Books and Joe Gentile got the idea of doing a book that was a political thriller, all right, which was basically at the end of World War I, somebody decides to overthrow FDR's early administration in a political military coup. And so Secret Agent X9, Jimmy Flint, finds out about this at the start of the book, and then in each subsequent story by different contributors uncovers different plots by this renegade army general and his group called the Medusa Council. But again, Gary Phillips co-edited that with Joe, and again, it became a very tricky thing to put together because you wanted to make sure each story was separate, but yet somehow tied in with each other. And that's why, basically, like I said, I think most Secret Agent X stories, and we've also done 2 Dan Fowler G-Mens as well, pretty much can work with political thrillers. But I would think, and this is my thoughts, Rob, I think they would work better as full, complete, in itself novels than trying to, like I say, do that juggling act with an anthology.
Yeah, that's an editor's nightmare because you're juggling. You're using if you're using several different authors, each one of them is going to have their own writing style. They're going to have their own way that they come at things, but in order to get it all to fit together, you've got to find some way to thread it all together, and that may be, depending on who's writing it, that could be a real nightmare.
Right, and believe me, it's a miracle, and it's a credit to Joe Gentile and to Gary Phillips that their shot at this actually produced a really decent book, which I'm really proud to have been a part of. It's called Day of the Destroyer. If you're interested, go check it out, because if you haven't seen it yet, Paul, it totally plays into what you're talking about. I personally, Rob, we talk, he's your favorite character. It's one of my hopes and goals that ultimately one of our writers will come to us and want to do a full-length Secret Agent X novel.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've still got our Secret Agent comic book to one side of my drawing board here that I'm hoping to get back to sometime here soon. But that one's kind of a political thriller in a way. It has some politics in it, but it's a sidelight to the main story. Right.
Yeah, and again, just a little hint of some of the things that we have in the wings, as you will say. All right, and so now we actually, as the hours tick by, come to our last question. I'll let you take it, buddy.
Okay, Michael Housel writes, he says, in your recent Captain Hazard adventure, you presented a crossover component with Super Detective Jim Anthony. As a rule of thumb, do you think crossovers work in the pulp realm? What are the pros and cons to such team-ups? I know some authors don't fancy crossovers. I read that Harlan Ellison had an opportunity to team Green Hornet with the Phantom in a story, but ultimately declined, evidently believing the two characters couldn't possibly mesh. I don't know that that's quite true, but anyway, again, this one I'm going to pitch to you because that's more in your bailiwick.
Well, again, and I'm going to agree with you. That whole bit, and I was familiar with that history because, again, I was happy to have been invited on several of those Moonstone Green Hornet anthologies. And Joe Gentile absolutely loves crossovers, and that's no secret. And in the first Green Hornet anthology, I think he had him meeting the Domino Lady, Airboy, and all kinds of different people, and wanted Ellison to contribute the Phantom story team-up. And again, it became public knowledge that Harlan didn't think it worked and finally, begged out of doing it. And I don't know if that's right or that's wrong. I mean, I understand it. They're two different milieus as far as the Green Hornets, this urban fighter, and the Phantom, as we all know, Rob, is more an adventure strip.
Yeah.
Taking place in Africa. It's international in scope. So maybe, maybe Ellison was on the right track there. Now, I want to add a couple things here, because I'm also myself a fan of crossovers. And, you mentioned Captain Hazard. Let's go back in the history of Airship 27. The first real Airship 27 title ever released was The Hounds of Hell, which was a crossover between the Moon Man series and the classic and the classic villain Dr. Satan, and was done by yours truly and New York author Gordon Linsner. And both of us had a blast, bringing those characters together. So a lot of it also depends on what style of hero or villain you're dealing with. Over the years, other writers have come into the field and combined people and done it to perfection, while others not so well. Our good friend Ian Watson from England often talks about you have to be very careful when you're doing a crossover, that you don't inadvertently give one character more of the stage and spotlight than you give the other character. And that has happened and annoyed some fans and readers, right, that their character didn't get the bigger portion, of the story than the other character that they don't care for as much. We at Airship 27 have used a lot of cameos in a lot of our classic pulp hero stories, which have always been a lot of fun. We've done a couple of really what we call solid crossovers that have worked immensely well and produced some great books for us. Right off the top of my head, Rob, I'm thinking Derek Ferguson.
Yes.
And Josh Reynolds, who combined Derek's own creation, Dylan, with Jim Anthony's Super Detective, and easily one of the best new pulp books I've read in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I illustrated that book, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was set in two different eras as well, so that it was just, it meshed so well that the way those guys worked together on those two characters was just amazing.
Right. And so all the time that we were working on this, that was that period where I was still finishing up with Captain Hazard, Custer's Ghost. And so it was just ironic that Jim Anthony became the linchpin. And I have to tell you, Rob, after we published Custer's Ghost at the end of last year, I dropped Derek a little note, kidding him, saying, well, okay, so here we go. Captain Hazard has met Jim Anthony, who via your book has met your character, Dylan.
Uh-huh.
So theoretically, Captain Hazard and Dylan also live in the same universe.
Yep. Sure.
And so basically, a few fans who read that exchange on Facebook were like, all right, you guys going to do it? You guys going to do it? It would be a tremendous challenge. I'm a big fan of Derek's work. I love his work, and if there were a reasonable way to make it happen, because like you said, in the Vril agenda, they had to deal with the 70s and the 30s.
Right.
And they made it work because the plot works itself into it. It's a brilliant plot. And again, if you haven't read it, folks, please go out and grab a copy. But anyways, who knows? Maybe someday I'll be sitting here in the office and the muse will hit me just the right way to give us something that actually makes sense of bringing a character from the 30s with a character from the 70s. We'll see what happens on that score. But the truth of the matter is, again, to answer your question, Michael, finally, in the bare bones, who are your characters? What's the era they lived and operated in? What's their backgrounds? And can that work to create a dynamic narrative that people want to read and enjoy? Again, writing Jim Anthony and Captain Hazard together was a piece of cake for me in that they were both cut from the same cloth. It was a challenge for me to make them distinct characters in the same adventure, but I was a little kid, in the toy store writing that book because, again, like I said, all of us grew up reading comic books and we loved the crossovers. Sadly, there weren't a lot of them in the original pulps, Rob. Friends of mine who are much more knowledgeable say there were maybe one or two actual pulp crossovers in the classic days, but that was it. And it didn't happen that often. So we've got a new generation, new pulp writers today who are much more willing to go out on that limb and give it a shot. We'll see what happens in the future.
Yep, and looks like that's it. I think we're
the hour is done.
Yeah, we're getting darn close.
Hey, we can't get away from this hour though again without thanking all of you who sent in those questions.
Yeah,
okay?
Helped us out a lot.
it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed our answers, that they maybe shined a little bit of light on the topics that you brought up. For those of you listening who'd like to for us to even elaborate on some of those themes, please fire away. We love doing this, and we love answering questions like this. So please send us some more, and hopefully when we get around to doing episode 24, we'll be able to address them as well. A lot of good stuff coming your way from Airship 27 this year, people. Stay tuned. Brant Sparky Fowler, thanks as ever for what you do for the show. And Rob, I think it's about time to say goodnight.
All right. This is your chief engineer, Rob Davis, signing off for another broadcast from Airship 27.
And as ever, Captain Ron has the pleasure and honor to say, down ship.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production.